All right, my friends, we are now learning a speech by Lubavitcher Rebbe, which is in the series of speeches that we've been talking about. It's all gathered together in a book which is called Dvar Malchut, the words of kingship, royal words of the Rebbe. The reason we're saying royal words is because the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Moshiach. He is the King Moshiach, and these are the words of the king. And as we said, we just finished, Shalom Menachem. As we just finished saying that the days of the Moshiach are going to be not miracles, not big miracles, not like the raising of the dead. I mean, there'll be certain miracles. If you ask me, that's the biggest miracle. It says all the Jewish people will be serving the creator of the universe. That's a pretty big miracle. That's pretty miracle. Of course, the Holy Temple will come from heaven. You don't see that every day. And in Jerusalem, it says all the synagogues in the world will all fly to Israel. That's pretty big miracle, if you ask me. But why did we say in the Maimon we just learned there won't be any miracles? Because all of that is just a means to an end. What's the end? The end is that all of the Jews should serve God. All of the Jews should do the commandments. And the main commandment, he said, is the sacrifices. And that's what the Maimon in the morning is explaining. How can this seemingly ridiculous statement be true? What could possibly be so important about the sacrifices? Anyway, meanwhile, the Rebbe said the main thing is serving God, and that's what Chassidut is teaching us, how to really serve God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and all of your might. Here we go. Parshat Vayechi. This is one of the speeches that the Rebbe gave in the 10th day of Tevis, which was transformed. The third. Let's take this again. This was one of the speeches that the Rebbe gave in the nighttime and in the daytime on Tuesday, which that's going to be this year also, which is the 10th day of Tevis. The 10th day of Tevis is a fast day. Fast day. Fast day doesn't mean it goes quickly. Fast day means, even though it sort of does go quickly because it's a very short fast, because the day is very short now. But a fast means that you do not eat. It is a day that you do not eat. Why don't you eat? Because it's a remembrance for when Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to the Holy Temple. Laid siege to the Holy Temple. That's pretty bad. And that was the beginning of the destruction of the first, and then, of course, after the second temple. So that's the beginning of a terrible, terrible tragedy, because when the temple was destroyed, so the Jewish people cannot serve God in a complete way. Why the sacrifices are so important, that's what we're learning in the morning. Nevertheless, this speech was given on this fast day. And on and after the fast. Parshat Vayechi, this week's Torah portion that we're reading. One minute. Healthy, that's right. Yeah, everybody healthy. That's a good miracle, right? But if you think about it, I don't know if people see these notes. People becoming healthy, on one way, it's a miracle. On another way, it's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. Because naturally, that's nature. Naturally, people are supposed to be healthy. If people are not healthy, that's a twist of nature. Something is missing, right? Something is missing, and it's an aberration of nature. But nature is everybody's supposed to be healthy. Of course, it's a big miracle. You know, there's countless stories of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I even know people that they had growths, they had this, and the doctor said they were going to be blind, and they were blind, and they couldn't do this. And there was one fellow who was in a car accident, and he was dead. They put him in, in the room, just wait for him to die because there was no chance. And all of a sudden, the guy got better. He got better, and there's one of them that he got better, and he has a yeshiva even in New York. There's a fellow. And there's people who were blind. All of a sudden, they see. There's a lady in Kfar Chabad. They could see, and people that were crippled, they could walk. There's all these amazing stories. There's stories with the Baba Sali. There's a lot of tzaddikim that made people healthy. A lot of people that made healthy. But listen, on the other hand, there are also a lot of stories, the Havdil, from other religions, that people become healthy. People were sick and they believed, and they said, faith alone, having faith in anything, can make you healthy, right? I remember there was a reading. I used to be once. I read a lot of books about these yogis or whatever they were in Tibet, and there was one of them that he died, and they cut up his garment, and they gave it to people, and the garment healed people, and it healed people. Just touching this garment of this yogi was what it was. It was a Buddhist, whatever, and it healed people. There's a lot of stories about people. So it's true, 100%. Healing people is a big miracle. It's a wonderful thing. It's a good thing. But the fact of the matter is that people are not supposed to be sick. They're not supposed to be sick. That's it. Being sick is a wrong thing. But Hashem should heal all the people that are sick. I'm not trying to belittle, healing the sick. Don't, because I can't do it. I mean, I wish I could. That would be. I think if I could have any wish, except for Moshiach coming, I would wish that I could just heal people just by giving them blessings. That would be great, huh? It'd be great. It would be wonderful. There's a lot of suffering in the world, and if you ask me, it's not necessary. I mean, nobody asked me, but so that would be. But that's what I'm trying to say. Making people healthy, the sick people healthy, is a wonderful thing, but it's not really a miracle. A miracle is something happening for the first time, never happened. Right? Splitting of the Yam Suf, that's a miracle. A total change of nature. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Let's go. Parshat Vayechi, but amen. Everyone should be healthy. All the sick should be healthy, and the blind should see, and the crippled should walk. And Parshat Vayechi is Siyum V'Chosam, is the end of the first book of the Torah. This is also the importance of the 5 books, the cheshivas of the 5 books of the Torah. Sefer Breshis, the first book, is in a way it's the most important book of the Bible. Why? Because it's Breshis, it's the Rosh, it's the head. Right. That's right. It's the head. The book of Bereshit is the head of the. One second. There we go. And this book is also called Sefer HaYashar. Another name. Why is the Sefer HaYashar the straight book? Straight. This is the book of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which are called straight. They aren't crooked. Maisa Avot Simon Labanim. What Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did is a sign for us. Shemahava Horah, this gives a teaching, V'natinet Koach, and empowers us, the Klalot Avodat, to the service of the Banim, of the sons. Who are the sons? The sons are Bnei Yisrael. The Jewish people are called the sons of God, and they're called the sons of Israel, Bnei Yisrael. Shemitchila, that in the beginning, the Eilu Shemot Bnei Yisrael, that this begins the next week. We'll learn Exodus, which is called Shemot, the names of Bnei Yisrael. The Jewish people are called Bnei, the sons of Israel. And this book of Bereshit, of Genesis, is the head of all the books, and it's drawn into all the books which come after it, and all the 24 books of the Torah and the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim, until even the book of Chronicles, Divrei Yomim, Divrei Yomim Bnei Israel, the history of the Jewish people until hopefully the end of all the generations, right? The Chronicles ends in the beginning of the Second Temple, the book of Chronicles, the second book. Mudgash b'Shema, and especially this is the completion of the first book of the Torah, which the first book of the Torah is the head of the Torah, and this is especially and it's also stressed in its name. The name of this week's Torah reading, that with it finishes the first book of the Torah. It's called Vayechi. Vayechi Yaakov, that Yaakov lived. Shekiv, in the sense, Yaakov, that Jacob, Bechir, was the choice of the 3 forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Mahavim Yaakov. So the life of Yaakov, Vayechi, the life of Yaakov, is a sacha called, this is the sum total of the Sefer Yashar, of the book of the straight book. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that they're called the straight, because they went straight, they weren't crooked. Sefer Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the book of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Al Yadon, by means of it, Nimshachim, B'Kol Yisrael, is drawn to all the Jewish people, all the things of the fathers. Sefer Yachar, Hamshacha, Atzmo itself, is called Yashar Yechazu Panemo. It says, straight, I will see your face. Until finally, this makes that Yaakov is alive. It's a call in Israel for all the generations until the end of all the Jewish people until the end of all generations. Tochana Parsha. What is the main content, the main topic, theme of this week's Torah portion? Birchet Yaakov Labanov, the blessing of Jacob to his sons. Livneze also to the sons of his grandsons, the two sons of Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe. He made them Keruven, V'Shimon, Yuli. Yosef was just one tribe. He was one of the 12 sons. When he was in Egypt, he had two sons, Ephraim and Menashe. Yaakov said, from now on, Yosef, you're not going to be one tribe, you're going to be two tribes. You're not going to be called Yosef. One tribe is going to be called Ephraim, one's called Menashe. They're going to be like Reuven and Shimon, though each one will be a tribe in himself. So he blessed them. He blessed them all. That's the end of this week's Torah portion. Actually, the whole Torah portion talks about this. He blesses them. Blesses, first of all, Ephraim and Menashe and the other 11 tribes. This draws down a blessing. A bracha means to draw down. The whole thing, accomplishments, all the accomplishments of Yaakov were drawn down into all of his sons. Yud Beit Shvatim, the 11 tribes. Shekolim, Kol Ben Yisrael, this includes all of the Jewish people until the end of all generations. So, B'Lashon Chazal, in the language of the rabbis, Yaakov Avinu lo met. Very surprising statement that Jacob did not die. It doesn't say in the Torah that he died. It said he gathered his feet in the bed, etc., but it doesn't say that he died. So from that, the rabbis say that Jacob, in fact, did not die. Right? He didn't die. Where is it in Sota? Where you Tainit? It's in the Gemara in Tainit. I'm sorry. In Sota, it says that Moses didn't die. I'm sorry. In the Gemara in Tainit, it says that Yaakov did not die, and it says Ma zaro b'chaim mafu b'chaim. Just like the Jewish people are alive, we see amazingly the Jewish people still exist. So Yaakov is also existing. Shechai Yaakov, that the life of Yaakov, Hem Chaim Nitzchim, their eternal life. They said by means of this, Nimshachim Etzel Zaro, it draws down into his offspring, the generations, the Jews after him, the Zaro, and the seed of the offspring of their offspring, until the end of the generations, Zaro B'chaim. That's one of the reasons why the Jewish people are eternal. The Jewish people didn't have a country of their own, they didn't have a land of their own, they didn't have a language of their own. They were scattered all over the place, but they knew they were Jews. Chaim emitim, true life, al yedei limud, by means of doing the Torah. Chayenu v'orachamenu, our life and the longevity of our days. The inyan shel Yaakov, that's the whole thing of Yaakov. Yaakov's whole thing was Torah, like it says, V'yakam edus b'Yaakov Torah Sam Yisrael, that the testimonies, the Torah, was put into Yaakov and into Yisrael. Yaakov and Yisrael is the same person, right? He just got his name changed. After he fought the angel, he got an additional name. When we end up this Torah portion by Yechi, then in it we finish the whole first book of the Torah. After we finish every book of the Torah, we do the same thing. But one in synagogue, when we finish reading the Torah, so it says, Chazak, Chazak, Vanit Chazek. Strengthen ourselves, and let us be strong. Come on, be strong, and let us be strong. Like the custom of the Jewish people, by Yechi Yaakov, this last portion, last reading of the book of Genesis, Vayechi, the Yaakov is alive, this gives a chizuk, it strengthens, makes strong the service of all the Jewish people for all the generations. I hope you do, according to what's known, Parshas Torah, that the Torah portions, shayachot b'miyuchad, especially lazman shabo korim parshas elu. The Torah portion that we read tells us something about the time when they are read. Yesh l'ba'er, so we can connect ourselves also to what it says with Parshas Vayechi. Namely what? Parshas Vayechi, like we said before, this week's Torah portion, this is the conclusion, the summary of the first book of the Torah, Sefer HaYashar, the straight book of Genesis, Shema'ava and Netinat Koch, that this gives a power and strength to all the Jewish people for all the generations. And what is the time when we're reading that? The 10th day of Tevis. The 10th day of Tevis, like I said, was a fast day. 10th day of Tevis, Ubafrat, and especially this year, and it also works out this year, the same thing. Shasera B'Tevet, that the 10th day of Tevis falls on the third day of the week, the third day of Parshat Vayechi, Tuesday. V'yom Shabbat Kodesh, Parshat Vayechi, and Shabbat Kodesh, Parshat Vayechi, right, which is going to be next Shabbat, that in it will be the completion of the 10th day of Tevet. Hu b'yom Yudalid Tevet. Shabbat is on the 14th day of Tevet. Erev Vitchal, this is the beginning of 2 Tevet, 15th of Tevet, that begins a Mincha Shabbat, that then, what's the 15th of every month? The moon is full. The moon is compared to the Jewish people. The Jewish people are compared to the moon. Kol Elom Yuchad, especially the Shlemus Aseret B'Tevis, and this elevates everything in the week before it, namely the 10th day of Tevet, this terrible fast day when the trials and tribulations and all the suffering of the destruction of the temple began. And just to add on as a parenthetical statement that someone wrote to the Rebbe once about the Holocaust, and he was in the Holocaust and he can't get over it, and it's terrible, and how could he get over it? So the Rebbe said that unfortunately the Jewish people have want to call it a rich history, but a history of overcoming tragedies. And although the Holocaust was an unspeakable tragedy, and there's no way you can possibly explain it or comfort the people that went through it, but those people can comfort themselves, and we see that it has been done in the past with all the other tragedies and expulsions that happened to the Jewish people. And said the Rebbe that it is very probable to say that the destruction of the first and the second temples, each one in its own, was worse than the Holocaust. That a bigger percentage of the Jewish people died, were killed, and that for sure, more of the Jewish people were affected. Because the Holocaust did not affect the Jews that were living in America or in Canada or in South America or whatever. They heard about it, they suffered. If they had relatives, for sure they suffered. But they read about it far away, which is not the case of the destruction of the first and second temples. Every Jew experienced it, especially the first temple. First temple, all the Jews were living in Israel. They were all expelled from Israel. And they all felt and saw that the temple had been destroyed. And beside the percentage of Jews that were killed, it says that there were rivers of blood that even a horse couldn't stand up, and the rivers of blood that flowed out. It's just shocking even to think of such a thing. If we got over that, which is impossible, how can you possibly get over that thing like that? But they did get over it. So we see that in the Jewish soul, there's somehow power to overcome the insurmountable, not to heal from, how do you say, impossible wounds, fatal wounds. We heal. In any case, the 10th day of Tevis is commemorating the beginning of the destruction, these terrible tragedies of the destruction of the temple. Somehow or other, this can be elevated, as we're going to talk. First of all, let's explain, what is this thing of the 10th day of Tevet? The 10th day of Tevet, this is one of the 4 fasts that come from the rabbis. The only fast that comes from the Torah is Yom Kippur. All the fasts come from the rabbis. Yeshno, but on the 10th day of Teves, in some ways is the worst. It's the most severe. There's a severity more than the others. I feel Lagabi Tisha B'Av, even Tisha B'Av. The fast of Tisha B'Av is the day when the first and the second temple actually were destroyed, and it is a full day fast. We start fasting in the nighttime, and we go 24 hours until the next night. The other three fasts are only half day fasts, only from when the sun comes up, whatever the when the day starts until the day ends. So it's only, let's say, 12-hour fast. The Lokashar Tzomos is not like the other fasts. Shem Rak, okay. Ubedugmas like a Tzom, the Yom Kippur. This is like the 10th day of Tevis is like Yom Kippur. Why? Shechiyuvo min Torah, that the obligation of Yom Kippur is from the Torah. Shafilu yachol b'Shabbos, that if Yom Kippur falls on Shabbat, you fast, pushes away Shabbat. Well, the same thing is also with the 10th day of Tevet. If the 10th day of Tevet would fall on Shabbat, which happens to be impossible after they've set the calendar, but if it would fall on Shabbat, we would not eat on Shabbat. B'Zaman, this is one cannot fall on Shabbat, in the time when the Jewish people were sanctifying the months according to the seeing of the moon. Which the Jewish people were sanctifying the moon, like, 200, 300 years after the second temple was destroyed. They were still sanctifying according to the moon. When the Beis Din was summer, there were, lo ayu yocholim lidchot yom acher, the yom of the 10th day of Tevet has to fall on the 10th day of Tevet, even if it's on Shabbat. Why? Because it says in the prophet about the 10th day of Tevet, be'etzem hayom hazeh. It says on the be'etzem hayom hazeh. Where does it say that? In Yechezkel, Ezekiel. Be'etzem hayom hazeh. That's the day that Nebuchadnezzar made a siege. Yechezkel was there, made a siege on the temple. So it says, because it says be'etzem hayom hazeh, then that means and that's the same language which is used on Yom Kippur. So that shows that that day remains set. Even if it comes on Shabbat, we would fast. It happens, like I said, that according to the way the calendar is set, we don't sanctify the months according to the seeing of the moon anymore. But the way the calendar is set now is the 10th day of Tevet cannot fall on Shabbat. But the fact is, the 10th day of Tevet is more severe than any of the other fast days of the rabbis. Because if it would fall on Shabbat, it would push off Shabbat. Why is it so severe? Dalet, almost these four fasts which were set because of the four things that happened with the destruction of the temple. They were in one continuum, one after the other. They didn't happen in the same year, but they happened, in the course of years. On the 10th day of Tevis, that's the fast we're going to have. That was when the king of Babylon laid siege, Somach, on Jerusalem. And he brought it into a state of siege. On the 17th day of Tammuz, that's another fast day. Then there was broken into Jerusalem. After that was the 9th day of Tammuz. That's when the first and the second temples were destroyed. And on the 3rd of Tishrei, which is a fast day, that's when Gedaliah was killed. And Gedaliah was killed, and that was the last hope of the Jews because they destroyed the temple, but they left Gedaliah there. That he could still be the governor, and he was a holy person, a religious person, and he kept Judaism going, and even though there was no temple there, but there was another Jew, an evil Jew, a political thing that he assassinated him. Why? It's not important, but anyway, he assassinated. That's another fast. All these occurred in one line. The beginning of the whole business was the 10th day of Tevis. Even since that the Sheba Asara B'Tevis in the 10th day, that was the beginning of all the destruction. And the beginning has more power than all the things that come after it. And therefore, Yesh Bo Chomer, therefore it has some sort of a severity more than all the other fasts which are connected to it. The destruction of the temple. It was just the fact that it was possible that the king of Babylon, who was a decadent, murderer, disgusting person, right? an evil, sadistic, how do you say, a despot, that he ruled, that he could come to the holy temple and lay siege to it, that itself is the beginning of the end. From this is understood also regarding the good which is in the fasts. Everything that's bad has some good, at least a good message concealed in it. If this is the worst of all the 4 fasts, because it's the beginning of the destruction of the temple, so somehow or other there must be a really good message hidden in this. Shasera B'Tevis, the 10th day of Tevis, is the beginning and the opening of the good which is found in all the fasts. What possibly good could be in all the fasts? We'll find out. Shaloch, and therefore, Harizeh B'Yeter Seitu B'Yeter Oz, therefore this, the 10th day of Tammuz, in one factor, it is worse and more powerful than all the others. That Shabbat would not push it off, even more than Tisha B'Av. When the Moshiach would, this is that was when Moshiach was born. If Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbat, we don't fast. We don't fast. Shabbat pushes it off. The only one that Shabbat fast, the Shabbat does not push off, except for Yom Kippur, which is in the Torah, is the 10th day of Tevet. So it must have something really, really good inside of it. What is that really good inside of it? We'll find out, God willing, tomorrow. And now let's do the Yom Yom. We'll tune off here. Turn this